Hey, welcome back to another episode of Music is the Glue. My name is Smitty, and this is my co-host, Tony. Side, what's, what's going on, man?
Nothing, man. How you doing?
I'm good, bro. How was your week?
Good. It's just clipping along, same old. I don't ever have anything exciting to share. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm constantly trying to find a real job, and it's just when you're not qualified to do anything, it's very challenging. I'm always putting it out there. If you need voiceover work done, please contact me. I would love to do that and not have to go work at a grocery store.
There you go.
Okay.
There you go.
We
Yeah.
are crazy excited about this episode. We've been doing this for a little while now, and Smitty's kind of getting his wings under him, and
Yeah.
it's brand new for him. But we had guests, and this was something we wanted to do when we started this podcast, is
Yes.
eventually have guests. And today, a very interesting story, a very interesting couple of guests who have a project that they have been passionately working on, and we are excited to help get the word out about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me,
My first interview, I was super excited, super nervous too, but
well, you can all comment and tell Smitty what he did right and wrong. Tell me what I did
Please.
right and wrong.
Please.
We
and
don't
don't
love
be
that.
gentle. Don't be gentle. I can take it.
He likes it rough. Okay. So that's coming up just very, very soon, right after we do Tony and Smitty's A to Z.
Yeah, buddy. Let's go.
We both have a pretty good-sized record collection, and we are getting to know you or letting you get to know us through that collection, one letter at a time. Each episode, we break out somebody from the next letter in the alphabet, and today, that letter is H.
H. And just so you know, we do not talk about what we're gonna show. We don't talk about it.
Yeah, so
beforehand.
it's exciting to know that I'm going to get to see something cool here, and sometimes it's surprising. Sometimes it's like, okay, this is on brand for you. So, Smitty, what do you got for us?
Okay, so the album I have here, it was released in 1983. It's a greatest hits compilation, which I think I mentioned this before. I'm not a huge fan of greatest hits compilation because I feel like they missed the mark on most of them. I think what I told you before, one of my favorite greatest hits is the Al Green. I love that one, and this is another one I love. They did not miss the mark. They have most of their major hits on this, and I could listen to this album like every day.
Okay.
But it is. I am holding up a cover of Hall & Oates' greatest hits album. You can see it.
Rock and Soul Part
Rock and
1.
Soul Part 1.
Love that. That is one of the
Rock and
greatest
Soul
hits
Part 1.
albums.
You cannot go wrong with this. It was released on RCA Records. So anybody, if you know Hall & Oates, it mixes rock, soul, pop influences. It's got a little of everything, but let me just go through this track list. This track list.
Oh, it's insane. Yeah.
So they released 2 new songs on this album. Say It Isn't So, it was a big radio hit, and Adult Education, which was, it kind of kept them, relevant during that MTV era.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. But the older songs are Man Eater, Private Eyes, Kiss on My List, I Can't Go For That, which is one of my favorites. You Make My Dreams, 101, Rich Girl, She's Gone, Sarah Smile, and Wait For Me, the live version.
Yes.
Can it get better than that? No, it can't. And also, I remember also they released a VHS tape. It was Rock and Soul Live.
Yeah.
Videos. Yeah, it was great. Oh, it was great.
It's so killer. And
This album.
it's funny you mentioned MTV because when I know about Hall & Oates, they did not like to do videos.
Yeah.
And the Private Eyes video is funny because it's terrible. I love the song. It's one of my
love it.
I love that song so much. But what happened was, they didn't want to make the video, and I don't remember the details, but ultimately they ended up getting together in like this warehouse late at night. And somebody came up with the idea, hey, what if we all wore overcoats and dressed like detectives? And so that was
so generic.
It was, and that's really all the thought they put into that. And that song is such a monster, but the videos, it's so cheesy. But they didn't care. They were like, we don't care about videos. We don't want to do this.
I still go on YouTube and watch it every now and then.
Oh, heck yeah.
Love it. Hall & Oates. That's my H. Daryl Hall, John Oates.
Yeah, it's killer.
Technically, it's 2 people, but the first guy in the group, his name is Hall. So that's Hall & Oates.
You should be clear. There's an episode of Always Sunny in Philadelphia where Charlie thinks it's Holland Oates, like it's a guy named Holland Oates.
Hall & Oates.
Yeah, no, that is not the case. 2 different guys, super talented. I saw them live. I don't remember what year it was. I was living in San Diego, and they had at that time it was called the Coors Amphitheater, and they changed the name a couple of times since then. But it was going to be the first concert played for any kind of public audience at that venue. And so they invited all the radio and TV people, media people. So we were in a crowd of maybe 300 or 400 folks in a venue that seats thousands. And it was outdoor.
Wow.
And but it was crazy because they hadn't technically finished everything. So, like, when you came in, they said, "Okay, you can only go to concession stands and bathrooms on the west side because we haven't finished any of that on the east side." And, like, the rows of seats, they had done like, every other seat was bolted in, so they were still really wobbly. They didn't finish the bolts because they were on a timeline, and they just didn't beat the clock. So, it was a weird thing, but it was great because we got to see Hall& Oates, and they, played with Chicago, that
Oh,
night.
man. I know
That was
that was
pretty
great. Oh,
pretty cool.
one thing I did realize when I was looking for my H's, I don't have a lot of H records, Tony. I have, like, 3 Hall& and Oates records. I can't remember the other person I had. I only have, like, 2 artists in H's. I gotta get my H game up.
Well, it's nice, though, that you now have reorganized your records so you can tell that you had H's. You wouldn't have even
Before, I would have never known. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I've got some good
separated.
H's. I mean, I almost picked that record, so I'm glad I didn't because that would have been pretty boring for both. I also picked Hall& Oates Rock and Roll Part 1. Uh, I have some great H's, and I really struggled with this one because, like, all the H's I really like, but I'm not, like, crazy passionate. I don't have really cool stories about any of them necessarily. So I went with one, and these guys are kind of a recent discovery for me. I mean, and they haven't been around that long anyway, but it's kind of a pop rock trio, and I think I saw them act before I heard them sing.
Really?
A movie came out in 2021 called Licorice Pizza, and it's by Paul Thomas Anderson. He's the same guy that did Boogie Nights and
Okay.
There Will Be Blood, and he's done several others. And it's a decent movie. It's not his best work in my opinion, but the girl who plays the lead in it is very good. I was like, man, I don't recognize her. Who is she? And it also, I think it was the debut of Philip Seymour Hoffman's son as an actor. He's also in that movie.
I didn't
So anyway, when the movie's over, I did what I always do. Is I got to find out who these people are. So I'm Googling, and I realized that the actress is part of a singing group. And so I picked I believe this is their second album, and I just like their music. It's catchy. I don't have a lot of cool stuff to talk about, but I'm holding a copy of a band called Haim, and it's called Something to Tell You.
Ohio. Oh,
Yeah. And these are sisters,
got a
and
handy dandy notebook. Hold on.
yeah, it's just really catchy pop music. And then what I found out when I was doing the research on that after the movie, that I didn't know that the other two sisters are also in the movie. They have very small roles, but so that their whole family basically was in this movie, which is kind of cool. And then I had it and I didn't write it down. Chaim is Hebrew for life.
I was gonna ask you that. What does Hayam mean?
Yeah, so it's life. So
Life.
yeah, so it's the three sisters, and it's just really catchy, kind of pop rock music. And as luck would have it, they have a brand new record that's coming out in just like a couple of weeks, I think on June 20th. And so I'm excited to get that because they've had an EP and I think 3 albums, but it's all just really catchy, fun music, and
Sure.
I like them very much. So that is my H
Okay.
album. Yeah, check them out.
Oh, interesting. I love when you pick albums I had never heard of.
Yeah, like I said, I know I'm sure they have a huge fan base that have known about them and been following them for a long time, but I'm a Gen Xer, so that wasn't a band that I necessarily had exposure to. So luckily, because of the acting, it led me down the rabbit hole to find out that they also had this great singing career and that they're actually very, very good.
Okay. I think I need to step my game up picking these albums. I'm gonna have to dig deep and find something you never heard of.
Well, I'm sure you will. I mean,
Yeah.
you're gonna have some stuff I haven't, and I'm not trying to stump anybody. But one of our early episodes, somebody mentioned how like I can't remember exactly what they said, but he had sent us a DM about, oh, your music choices are so expected. They're so general because he's like he fancies himself a deep diver and he knows all these
Yeah,
weird
yeah,
crazy
yeah.
artists you've never heard of, and that's fine. And
Yeah.
I know a lot of people are like that, but sometimes you just like what you like,
Yeah, exactly.
and if you've heard of it, great. If you haven't, also great. But there you go. H is Chaim. Are we ready
Okay.
to do this? I just want to get to the interview because I'm so excited about this. So on Instagram, a guy named Graham Wallace on an account called Continued Sound reached out to us and said, "Hey, I don't know if you guys have guests on your podcast, but really love your podcast, and I've got a project that I'm working on that I think might be interesting. Maybe we could talk about it." And it's a reissue label. He's got his own little indie label. It's in Los Angeles, and they're going to tell the story, so we don't need to tell it here. But he and Ben Takis, who is the stepson of the artist, got together to reissue a song by the artist. And the artist is Kip Carmen. And Kip Carmen and the New Frontier was his band. And I'm guessing probably 90% of you or more have not heard of this. You don't know.
I was one of those.
Same. They
Yeah.
sent us the music to listen to, and it is so good.
Yeah.
If you love like 70s R&B, it has just a great vibe. We're going to talk about all that.
And
We're
we're
gonna talk
not
about
just saying that either.
No, 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 no,
I
no, no.
really liked it. Yeah.
From the time that it
Absolutely.
started playing, man, it was so good. So Graham and Ben are here, and we had a chance to talk to them about this project and about how it all came together. And it's really just a fascinating story, and we hope you enjoy it. So without further ado, ba-ba-dum-ba-dum-ba-bum, Graham and Ben. All right, Graham, Ben, we are super excited to have you on the show. Thank you so much for taking some time to talk about this incredible project.
My pleasure. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Well, let's start out with just some background and some beginnings here. Graham, I want to start with you. Continued Sound, very cool indie label, very cool idea that you had. How did this become your thing? And when did you decide, hey, this is what I want to do with this project and this is what I want to do with this label? Tell us a little bit of background about how this came to be for you.
Okay, yeah. It's hard to say. It's a pretty young label as far as I've only sort of been in business about a year or 2 years now. But you know, as anything sort of record related, it was always sort of a passion and a growing. Like I knew I wanted to have a label, and I knew I wanted to put out music, and I knew I wanted to somehow, do business with my obsession that I think we all share of record digging and just finding new music and sharing new music. So, and I was always a follower of reissue labels and, the big ones like Numero Group or Light in the Attic. And I just was so fascinated. I was like, I think I understand what a reissue label is. I think I get what they do. I don't know exactly how they what the behind the scenes work is of putting out something that's already existed and making a new relationship with that artist. But it's always fascinated me. So yeah, it was a long couple of years of figuring out the kinks. But now that I sort of know what I'm doing, it's very fun. And it's just it's the perfect avenue for my sort of obsession that is just showing people new music. I used to have, I was a DJ, still am sort of. I have just different ways to be like, hey, check this out. But this has been the most rewarding so far.
It is cool when you're a music lover and kind of an aficionado like that. One of the things, I think any of us on this call would love to do is say, hey, have you heard this? It's always exciting when you can take something you love and show somebody else. And it's especially cool when they're like, oh, I haven't heard of this before. This is bringing something new, which is kind of what you guys have done, certainly for me, with this project we're going to be talking about. And let me bounce it to you, Ben, for a second. How did this come to be? Did Graham come to you? Did he say, or did you come to him? How did this go?
Well, we got connected through another YouTube music person, Nadine from the Soul Disco channel. But this came about because I had a project, and there's backstory behind this, of course, but my stepfather, whose record we put out, has a catalog of music, and I watched as people kind of reached out to him from around the world. He was not a well-known recording artist. He had some really cool career highlights, but I watched as people from Greece, from England, all over Europe, all over America would reach out asking him, more questions. People would want to put out his music, and there were always these snags in the rights, and some stuff did trickle out. But I got to the point, he's getting older, still alive, doing great. But I just set in my mind that we need to do something with this catalog while he's still here to enjoy it. The time is right. And it was maybe a year or two ago that I started this process of kind of organizing the rights, getting the best sound sources that I have, getting the stuff remastered, trying to find a home for it. And when Graham and I got put in touch, we connected over some different kind of music that we love to dive deep into. And this is kind of the beginning of this process of getting his music out.
And he's your stepdad. When did he come into your life?
Yeah, I was about 5 years old when he met my mom. And this was, to literally age myself, this was like 1984. And it's an interesting time in Kip's career because he was kind of wrapping up his recording career. And he had some stuff besides the single that Graham and I just put out. He had recorded a few other things that collectors have found. But by 1984, he was kind of moving into a phase of his career where it's like, okay, let me just lead my band, get the highest paying gigs I can, and just make a living. No more of this trying to be a breakthrough on radio. He had kind of set himself on a different path. Stayed with music for another couple decades or so. But that's when he came into my life, and all of this stuff was kind of behind him. And I grew up, hearing these songs, seeing him play, and kind of slowly absorbing the story. But it was only, do the math, it's this many years later. And it's only relatively recently that I started really digging in and getting the whole story behind the recordings.
He's a fascinating guy. Just watching the video you guys posted recently, that 8-minute little kind of mini doc. I just was like, man. And there's so many. Not to minimize him in any way, but there are so many artists like him who are incredibly talented, who are great at what they do, but through a series of either misfortunes or just missed or those bad luck, whatever. It just never blows up the way that they wanted to. And certainly it's worthy. I mean, when you guys sent us the song to listen to, and I mean, we should say the song Kip Carmen and the New Frontier, that's enough for me as the A side. B side, Loving in the Morning, also a great song. But I mean, I as soon as it started, I was just like, God, this has got such a cool vibe, and it's giving me Santana feels, and I feel like I should hear this in a Quentin Tarantino movie. It's such a great tune.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think Graham can speak to this feeling of discovery, which is what Graham was describing, part of the reason he started his label. And I've been doing the same thing, collecting records. You could see just a portion of them behind me. But once you get the main people, the big stars, Curtis Mayfield, Donny Hathaway, Marvin Gaye, you start getting your arms around that. Then if you're a certain type of collector, you want to like dig deeper. And then these little stories of like, why didn't this person get big? And that you could just find a song that's so good, like that you never heard of. That's kind of what is interesting about this process. Like there's no end to it. Graham, I know you feel the same way about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the stories are just as interesting as the music half the time because it just opens up sort of a door into another world when you start collecting and you start reading liner notes and you start learning about like who's on whose projects and stuff, and you realize it starts to build out this sort of narrative that you're coming to grasp and sharing those stories. And it takes a certain type of person, I think, be it a collector or just a music junkie, to sort of be like, oh, this story, like this guy met this person and then that person gave him this opportunity. It's like a movie sort of playing out when you just go into time. And yeah, you realize that the music industry and with releases, it's only so many people get their time, get their 15 minutes. And for every one person, there's 100 other people that are just as talented and have what it takes, but it takes more than that to launch them into the stratosphere.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So for both of you, was there any red tape that you had to get through in order to be able to re-release this music? Did your stepfather own the rights to his music? Can you kind of explain that?
Yeah, let me do my best on that.
Okay.
There were recordings, in his catalog that are like very clearly that he released some of his stuff himself on his own label, and that's a portion of his catalog. There's other stuff where I know who the rights holder is, and I had to do a deal, and we locked that up. My stepfather Kip always kept his publishing, when he could, at least after a certain point in his career. And then there are songs that are kind of in a gray area. Was there an agreement at the time? What does it say? Where did this company go?
Right.
And it wasn't so much red tape, but it was like months and months of research, trying to find old trade magazines and trying to trace what happened to this company. Where are these rights? But in the reissue game, sometimes you get that clear piece of paper with kind of a chain of lineage and you're like super good to go. Sometimes you kind of follow the twists and turns and then you're in a weird gray area and you decide, do I go forward? Do I not? It's just kind of like that. When deeper you dig, sometimes it gets really messy.
Yeah, and it's tough for for guys like you who are you're doing this with heart, you're doing this with passion. Then there's people like Bruno Mars. He's already rich, so he doesn't care if he gets sued by somebody because he's like, hey, look, I'm going to put this song out. I know it sounds just like that other song, but I don't care. I'll just pay him. It's easier for him. So I'm sure when you talk about red tape, it sounds like it's a whole thing's one big ball of red tape that you kind of have to like trim away to get to the core of what needs to be done.
And I went thorough. I went really deep. I found the producer, Bob Morgan, who's still alive, and had some exchanges with him. I traced some of the companies that might have been considered successors to that original Queen Bee label, and I, talked to them. I dotted every I, crossed every T. So I went about as far as you can go, and I feel good about where we landed.
Yeah, Ben's a lawyer. The Ben knows how to get. Well, he's got a level of intricacy that it made me feel like I've been sloppy all this time. So like, not a music lawyer, but I've just sort of like, I've having no sort of legal expertise. I've reached that that fork in the road, that dead end where you're like, I've met and contacted everybody that has anything to do with this, and take that leap, like ask forgiveness instead of permission at a certain point, because people might come out of the woodwork, but you sort of have you have tried, and then you just see what they want to do from there on out.
At the end of the day, it's my stepfather. He was the artist. You know, it was his group, his music. He wrote these songs. These songs were put out, you know, by other people. One of the reasons you could do this and feel okay is because there is somebody who has a legitimate claim to the music itself.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
we're not just kind of doing this out of nowhere.
Yeah, you just find some dude on the street and say, hey, let's just dig into his life and do some stuff with it. I mean, this guy
Right.
is, you know, he is related to you. He's your stepdad. It makes, and the fact that you have a legal background, that's certainly helpful. I watched a lot of Matlock. That's about all I got. Well, let's talk a little more about your stepdad. Let's talk about Kip. This is such an interesting story, and you know the song itself is great. Talk a little bit about, because I'm sure for a lot of people this will be their first exposure to Kip and his music. You know, I know I find it fascinating that he's a Native American. I think that's really, really cool. That brings me back to the Redbone vibes. You know, that big hit that they had. You know, and for a lot of people, I don't think people even realize that these guys were Native Americans.
Oh, yeah.
How hard was it for him? And whether we want to, you know, whether you like it or not, race plays a card in these things. Sometimes it's harder for a certain artist of a certain background. Did he find it difficult? Did he find people trying to stereotype him and get him to do things that he maybe didn't necessarily want to do musically? Tell us a little bit about his background.
You know, he never talked too much about that kind of thing. You know, I think it would come out here or there, but he started his career very young. He was just in high school, 15, 16 years old. He was the kind of guy who would organize, rent a venue, do all the promotions, sell all the tickets, you know, get everybody in town to come. And he would just do that over and over again in his hometown. So he would just kind of make it happen. And he was kind of known for that. So everybody loved him, and he had one of those personalities. People were drawn to him. So he was that kind of guy who would transcend stereotypes. He did tell me, kind of being on the road, especially after he kind of had that Native American persona that was foisted on him a little bit with his management. He had conversations. He tells me one encounter he had with Jerry Lee Lewis, the piano player.
Yeah,
is like, they would call them Indians, American Indians back then. Or what do Indians know about rock and roll? And they had their little encounter. He would open for people.
So I would never be able to hold my tongue with Jerry Lee Lewis. Oh, I don't know. What do you know about marrying kids and your cousin?
Right.
You know,
Right.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
But he tend to be the guy who like laughs that kind of thing off and just do his thing. And he could always deliver. And at the end of the day, being a musician, you know, that's what counts.
In his path, you know, so many cool things happened to him, but I was blown away. I mean, the time in Memphis, the high record, the Al Green's label, any memories that he shared about that? How was that for him?
Yeah. So in my little 8-minute piece, I tell the story, and this is also in the liner notes. A lot of this single, which was just before his whole time with High Records and that label, this is all kind of centered around Memphis. That was kind of where he was hitting the best. The venues loved him. He would sell out his shows. So there was a lot of talking going around in Memphis. And he told me, I didn't get into this in the video, but Steve Cropper from Booker T and the MGs had just left Stax around 73, 74 and was doing his own label. I think it was called Trans Maximus. So they were in conversations. Then High Records came along and they were talking, and you know, eventually Kip loved Memphis. I mean, Stax, Otis Redding, you don't always hear it in his music, but this is the stuff that he grew up on and loved. So he was really drawn to the city and ended up signing with High Records. He cut one single. He recorded some other stuff that never got released, you know, and that relationship lasted a few years. But Memphis is kind of where his heart was. And when he got the chance to go record at Royal Studios with the Memphis Horns, this was his next single after the one we re-released.
Okay.
And Al Green's backing singers, he was in heaven doing that stuff.
I bet.
Yeah.
I just can't even imagine. That would be such an incredible thing to have that experience. I mean, I'm sure you're kind of looking around, pinching yourself, like, is this really, is this happening?
Yeah.
In the doc, too, it was interesting to see him, you know, his comments on it and talking about it. And I always find it fascinating. I love seeing artists and you know, a little older, a few more years behind him, talk with such passion about what they did, what they've achieved, and even somebody like him who didn't have that huge success, but still got to do things that he really loved doing. He seems like a really intelligent, fun, interesting guy.
Yeah, and it's nice to show people a little of his personality because I don't think there's any interviews with him yet that have been out, but he's got kind of an infectious personality, and it's kind of a part of what helped his career along. And but collectors now would have no way of seeing that, so that's one thing I got to bring to people. And there will be more.
Good. Yeah. Well, I'm excited to see what else you guys do. Now, like Graham at Continued Sound, when you pick an artist like this and you found this and you want to do this, how much time will you spend on this particular guy? Do you have other people in mind? Are you always looking for that next thing? How do you go about this? What's your process?
I'm kind of always looking for the next thing. It's kind of just me. I'm like a one-man operation. So as far as like funding and anything that goes into getting the next release, it sort of has to go at a certain pace, which isn't, always as fast as I'd like it to go. But you sort of want to accumulate funds, make a couple bucks off the releases and hope you can just sort of, move that and put it back into the label. So I feel like what started the label is my inability to turn off that sort of what's next. Some might call it ADHD, but it's really helped me. It's really helped me in my pursuits. And yeah, you always want something sort of in the hopper. And that whole process of finding something is like, kind of the most exciting part. You're like a detective. You're tracking someone down. You're a reporter. You're kind of, are they still alive? How do I get a hold of them? I don't know any of these. I have no sort of industry ins to immediately put me in touch with people. So it's usually like a cousin or someone they worked with. Just like you got to come with, the best of intentions and not make anyone feel uncomfortable, like you want to take something from them. And then you make those connections. And, usually in my experience so far is people, you finally, break through and permeate the sort of guard, and they're so thrilled to be able to, that someone like me has tracked them down and wants to put out their stuff again. Like it's very flattering, and they want to talk about, like Kip, they want to talk about the good old days. They want to talk about their process. Like everyone who's made great art wants to, have an audience to hear how their process went into it and all that stuff. So it's really rewarding. And yeah, just as slowly as it moves sometimes, it's really rewarding.
You mentioned having to find people or whatever. Did you come across any artists that were totally against this idea and didn't want anything to do with it?
Not yet. Usually like someone just won't email me back, and I'll try, and then maybe someone won't get back to me, and I can chalk it up to maybe they never even made it across their desk. But my first release ever, before I had a label, before I had anything to my name, I wanted to make a compilation of soul music from my native New Jersey. And so I wanted to put together the soul of New Jersey, and I was tracking down these Jersey guys. I really wanted to I wanted to distance and sort of establish Jersey as having, all platinum and Sylvia and all these great sort of Jersey people. And so I'm quite literally a random person who got their landline, and I'm calling men in their late 80s and just saying, hey, you got music, and guys who have had probably a career of people trying to exploit their stuff. So like, I'm just, you got to just have the purest of heart and sort of make sure you don't freak anybody out or say something. Right. And yeah, these two, I got in contact with these two great producers, a man named George Kerr, who's got a ton of hits under his belt. A guy named Paul Kaiser, who's got a lot of less sort of well-known hits, but prolific. And yeah, they were very understandably, suspicious and unclear of what my intentions were. And what I felt like my greatest strength was in that moment was naivete and having no sort of, I'm like, look, you suspect I don't know what I'm doing. It's because I don't know what I'm doing. Okay. But let's work together. Like if anything pops up and makes you sort of feel suspicious, let me know. Like I can plead ignorance and not knowing what I'm doing, but let's see if we can move together and make this happen.
Actually, that probably helped because they probably figured this guy doesn't know what he's doing. Out one of your typical scumbag record label owners. You know what I mean?
Right.
That probably helped you in that.
Oh, they got some great deals out of me. That's for sure. I had no bargaining chips. So I'm just like, what do you want? Like, don't hurt me too hard. But what do you need?
Yeah, and if I could add something to that, this time that people like Kip and other artists that Graham worked with, when they were coming up, this thing about people putting out records for the passion of it, there was that, in the very lowest levels, but the industry was like full of people really trying to make a buck off you in any way possible. Kip at one point had talks with Atlantic Records, kind of in between High Records and then going independent. And he had just had it with these deals where they just own you entirely. And he walked away. He's like, there's no bargaining with them. It is just, here's the deal. We own everything. And he just had enough. And to have somebody kind of coming around now, like, we just want to get your music out. We love records. Right. We think people should hear it. It's different. Not everybody is like that, like Graham. But the fact that there are people like that out there is definitely a new thing for people from Kip's generation.
Yeah, well, the landscape is so different now. It really started with some smaller bands, but when Radiohead put out an album and said, "Pay what you want," I think that was a huge turning point, for music. When people started sharing more music, I mean, you can make fun of Napster all you want, but when those kind of things started happening, it changed how. And I'll tell you something, because I was in the radio business, it made record labels crazy nervous.
Yeah,
and they're certainly paying the price now. I'm watching. I live in Nashville. I live in Nashville, and I'm watching them, reorganize and cut all the time. I've had dear friends who have lost a gig after 30 years because they just don't need them anymore. And right. I think it's a great time, I think, to be doing what you're doing, Graham, and then with this, reissues like this and giving some of these artists an opportunity to be heard.
Yeah.
As difficult as it is, it's still easier than it would have been 20, 30 years ago.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, yeah.
And that's a great thing about Kip too, is that whether or not he had the shine that he hoped to have in his career, what came through in talking with him and hearing him tell his story is that his integrity was so strong. He wasn't going to he could have been bigger, but he didn't let, a record label take him for everything he's worth and then have nothing to sort of show for it. He can hold his head high and be like, I wasn't going to take that deal. That might have paid me crazy, but he
kept his soul.
Integrity.
Yeah.
It's funny. I've interviewed Kenny Rogers many times before he died, and he always had the best stories. And he would tell, before the Eagles documentary where the story kind of came out, he was on the show with us one time, and he said, we always just opened the mic and said, tell us a story. And so he would just pick one, and he told a story about meeting a young Don Henley when he was still with Shiloh. And, Don was like, yeah, I'd really love if you would come see my band. And he said, well, I don't really come see new acts. I'm not really interested. But he ended up changing his mind. He went to the hotel where they were playing. And then he said they were great. He said, so I got them, and they stayed at my guest house. He basically helped put the Eagles together, but he told them, and you mentioned publishing earlier, Ben, he said, the best advice I can give you is no matter what happens, no matter what this label tries to do, don't let them take your publishing.
Right.
Because that's what's going to pay the bills. That's what's going to build you a house. That's what's going to, keep your sons and grandsons and daughters paid for the rest of their life. And, they talk about it in that Eagles documentary. And that's, so somebody like Kip, he's not the Eagles, but he still was able to say, look, it's more important to me to not let you own everything, including me. I'd rather just, walk out and do this differently. And that's incredibly strong.
Yeah, in a way, Kip is one of those artists that was kind of born in the wrong decade. He would have been perfect for this era that we're in, where you just build your audience, you get your mailing list, you blast out your tour dates, sell the shows. That's what he was doing in high school. And he just happened to come up in the time when you needed a middleman to go anywhere in the industry. And his career, he was always just bumping up against one of the middlemen who wanted him to be something else, or his sound wasn't like exactly immediately of the moment. But if he had been coming up now, he would be one of those people killing it, with a ton of people on his social media.
Yeah.
But the industry was the industry back then.
Yeah. Well, I stand by what I said earlier. I mean, I think the exciting thing about his music when you hear it is I can hear this stuff showing up in a movie today. I mean, it might be a retro movie, it might be something else, but I think there's still a chance for this guy to blow up and be known in a huge way. And it must be really exciting for you because you've made the building blocks of this to allow that to happen.
Yeah.
How much more of his music are you looking at reissuing? Do you have specific songs in mind? I know you're certainly focused on this first one. We want to get that. We'll give all the information for people to get it. But what are you looking ahead to?
So he's got a kind of a few albums worth of stuff in his catalog. I am on a search for more. There's some of the stuff during the High Records days at Royal that I know there are tapes somewhere, but it's a very long story. I'm still trying to get to the location where I think they are. So I'm still kind of digging in a way. He has an album that he self-released in 1980 that I put up on streaming, which is called Just for Tonight. That would certainly, re-releasing that somehow would be cool. My real mission, where kind of all this is headed, and we started really strong. I love this single that we just put out, but there's an album that he recorded and it never got released as a full album. And there's a song on there called This Island Is Our Home that is one of the biggest collector's items that Kip has. It made its way out on a 7-inch, but there's a whole bunch of songs from that session that was supposed to be an album, but just he kind of ran into changes in radio formats in the early 80s, and it just didn't land anywhere, and it got dropped. And I did a big kind of remastering, restoration deal on those recordings. This is what I bought back the rights. So ultimately, I really want this thing. The album is called Clear the Way, never been released. Some of the songs are out there. So that is the one that I'm really looking forward to. And he worked a lot with Cornell Dupree, who's guitarist for Aretha Franklin, Donny Hathaway, Brooke Benton, like big time. Like he's a legend.
Yeah.
Stuff too, right?
Yes. Oh, Stuff. I always forget to mention that. The keyboard player who my stepfather worked with is a guy named James Allen Smith. His friends called him Jimmy Smith, which is unfortunately a little confusion with the jazz organist.
Jazz artist, yeah.
But he was amazing. He played keyboards in Stuff after Richard T. passed away. And Jimmy also played with Robert Palmer, Candy Staton. So he's amazing. In his arrangement, he did all the arrangement and had a big hand in the production of this unreleased album. And lots of other like top tier session musicians. So it's really good. This Island Is Our Home is out there. Check the streaming platforms, and that kind of gives you a taste of it. It's a phenomenal song as well. So that's kind of where I'm headed with this, and just trying to see if I can get the awareness out and see where it lands.
That is so exciting. It's such an interesting project. When Graham reached out on Instagram about this, I'm just a music lover, and Smitty too. That's why we got together to do this podcast. And so to see somebody do something like this passion and the effort that goes into it is really just cool. As a Gen Xer, I'm like, okay, I love a good story, and this is just a great story.
With these recordings, there's something raw about those old recordings. Now, when you guys re-released these, did you do any cleaning up of the music? Did you do any, or did you just kind of put them out? Okay.
Yeah, I have an amazing mastering engineer that I just fell into working with. His name is Dave Gardner. He's in Los Angeles.
Okay.
He is currently working on remastering the entire Westbound Records catalog with a registered label called Org Music. Funkadelic stuff is going to come out. He is amazing. And I've got these tapes that I sent to an archiving engineer around Nashville. Her name's Catherine Vericoli, and she's also working on the Funkadelic Westbound stuff. So somehow I just kind of landed with that team, who are absolutely incredible. And there's a bunch of Kip's catalog that went through that treatment. This particular song, there is no master tape anymore, which is what you run into a lot in the reissue game. This is like 52 years ago, a label that went out of business,
right?
Also in the 70s. So there is no master tape. What we have is an original, and I've got a nice, clean original copy as it came out in 1973. I sent it to Dave Gardner. He had it cleaned in a $50,000 ultrasonic machine, did an amazing needle drop, did his wizardry, just kind of cleaning, every pop that might still be there.
Yeah.
And doing the EQ. And what you can do these days with needle drop and digital technology to clean it up is really amazing, what they could do. And I have the original and I have the reissue, and the reissue sounds fantastic. I mean, it's right up there.
Okay. And to Smitty's point, though, what I think a needle drop and someone in charge of preserving and cleaning up a needle drop, what they do best these days, because I'm dealing with them all the time, is preserve that sound that you're talking about.
Yeah.
The one that just feels like it's recorded in the 70s and wasn't
That sound that
technology.
Lovers love,
Exactly. The air is in the room. You hear the movement, and
oh yeah.
that's, I feel like, the engineers, they're audio and music nuts, so they really want to preserve it and not just modernize it and make it sound like an MP3.
Right.
It's still got that warmth, and again, I said, the vibe. The moment this song started, I was like, whoa. It is there. And it's really cool vinyl too. I love it. The vinyl is really cool looking. It's always fun to get real cool looking vinyl as well. Well, guys, thanks so much for being on the show. Obviously, it's great for us as a tiny little podcast just getting started. But thanks for taking the time to do this. Graham, thanks for having an idea for a label that puts music out there that people can maybe they missed the first time around and now are going to get a chance to find.
Oh, can I ask one question before we?
No.
Oh, Graham. So when I was reading about you guys, you have the background in comedy, right?
A little bit, yeah, screenwriting and stuff.
I was just curious, like, how did you go from comedy to wanting to be in the music business? I was just curious, real quick.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's sort of something that I didn't like. I hope to not have just jumped ship from one to the other. I've been sort of writing for screen and doing comedy sketches and stuff and short films. And that was always just something that always interested me a lot. I wrote the first movie I ever wrote. It didn't get made, but it was about, I don't know if you heard of KPM Records, the library label. Like, it's always been this British library label that has this fun story. It's like, I can't shake the music. Like, and everything that I've written comedy about has a music component. Music was my first love, and I was a musician, in high school and through college, and just sort of, I couldn't seem to shake it. And it's, I forget what broadcaster, maybe it was Johnny Carson. It's like, you use everything that you have. And so I brought just sort of, hopefully my, skill set for writing and producing and just sort of finding the entertainment value in something over to here. It's just sort of feels like a more home feeling place, and I live in LA, and being a writer, screenwriter, it's a crazy game. It's a very, it's nothing you can hang your hat on and rely on. So this is also a very fun way to feel like, it's still sort of a labor of love in a sort of small business sort of capacity, but I'm making stuff. I'm seeing through these projects, and it's so much more rewarding.
Nice. Well, we're going to give everybody all the details they need to find this record and what have you. But first, and we haven't done this before. This is brand new for Smitty and I, because you guys are our first guests. But
Thank you so much.
We want to do the old rapid fire thing that everybody does. Now, for the record, and I'm not saying I was the first to do it, but back in the very early 90s, my partner and I started doing something called 60 Seconds, and we based it off 60 Minutes when that was still, mattered. And it was just, real quick questions, try to find a little bit about you in a fast amount of time. The idea is that you don't think too hard about your answer. We just get through as many as we can. We call ours 45 RPM. I'm going to put 45 seconds on the clock, and we'll get through as many as we can. Smitty, why don't you start? You ask, and you guys don't have to both answer the same question. Smitty will start with Ben, and then I'll go to Graham, and we'll just go back and forth. You guys ready?
Okay.
Here we go.
Let's do it. First question, Ben. Name one song that instantly puts you in a good mood.
Oh, God. Oh, yeah, I am not built for this game.
That's what makes it fun, man.
Curtis Mayfield, something for the darkness. I don't know. I just love that song. Right on for the darkness. Is that what it?
Yeah.
First one that comes to mind.
Yeah.
The groove is just killer. Okay.
Graham, what was the first concert you ever went to?
Oh, brother. I think my dad might have brought me to a Beach Boys concert. So
Nice.
lucky. That feels good about that. Feel good about that one.
Yeah.
One movie that you watched more than 5 times.
Who's that for?
Wow.
Ben.
That 45 seconds went fast. You really could get
That answer real quick.
You slowed us out of the gate, Ben, with that first one.
You had to pick the toughest question.
Let's see if we can get an answer for this one. I'm going to ask one more, and then when we edit it, maybe I can make it still come in under 45 seconds.
Speed up. Speed up.
So one movie, Ben, that you watched more than 5 times.
First one that comes to mind, Once Upon a Time in the West, Sergio Leone with the Ennio Morricone soundtrack.
Yes.
It's,
Oh, yes. Good answer.
Well, I had some other more deep kind of questions, but since we didn't get through many, I'm going to end with this one. Graham, would you rather fight one horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses?
It's a really important question. I need to take my time with this. I guess I'd have to take on the little guys, like the little, is it a duck-sized horse.
Duck-sized horse.
Duck-sized horses, yeah.
Yeah, I'm scared. The other one sounds terrifying.
So I feel like their kicks wouldn't hurt quite as bad as one big, if that duck gets his bill on you. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm smooth.
Okay. Well, gentlemen, it's been a pleasure.
Tony, wait.
What?
Where did you come up with that question?
I don't know. This is how my mind works, Smitty. I don't know what to tell you, man. And look, for the record, I had questions like, what's your hidden talent? What scares you? Who's an artist you love that would surprise your friends? I had good questions here. But, 45 seconds goes by awfully fast. So Continued Sound is the label. Kip Carmen and the New Frontier. That's enough for me. Incredible song. Where's the best way to get this music, guys?
Continued Sound website. I have a Bandcamp for Kip. Kind of like, we got a deal. We're 50-50. So wherever you buy it, just
Yeah.
either one of those.
We have distribution through Fat Beats. So
You can beat.
if you Google it, yeah, they're a great distributor. They put it to record stores.
There's a lot of records from them.
Yeah, and it might
Oh,
just
yeah.
be, if you Google it, there's a way to buy it.
And I would say Kip has a lot of fans in Europe and UK, and there are plenty of shops that stock it overseas thanks to the distributor. So that would be easier. There are plenty of shops they could find overseas. But if you're in the States, Bandcamp, Kip Carmen's Bandcamp, or Graham's website.
Excellent. All right. Well, all that's in the description for this, in the notes as well. So if you guys missed that, you need to grab it. It's there for you. We'll put the links up. Graham, Ben, guys, thank you for the project. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us.
So much.
We wish you the very best, and we hope we
This
can.
is so cool.
Yeah, we really want to get the word out about this. It's a great song, great artist.
Yeah.
Thank you. I love what you guys are doing.
Hey, Smitty, you made it.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
So yes, you survived your first interview, Smitty. How'd you feel about it?
I'll get better. It's like double dutch. People, you know what double dutch is, the jump rope game. It's like you try to find that perfect time to jump in with a question. But I'll get better. I'll get better. I got a few in there. Thanks for hearing me, Tony. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. I've done 1,000 interviews in my life, and it is tricky when you have two people interviewing at the same time. It's one thing to have one guy interviewing two people, but when two people are interviewing two people, it can get dicey.
Yeah, right.
Because you don't know where the conversation's going to go. You don't know what the other guy's going to ask next. You don't want so it all comes with time. But we hope you enjoyed it.
You started me in the deep end. Yeah.
Well, we got to get these folks going. Get the record. All the information's, as we said in the interview, in the description, and it is so good. And this artist, Kip Carmen, he deserves to be heard. He deserves an audience, and I'm just thrilled that these guys are giving that to him. So that's it. We're going to wrap it at this point because I think we jabbered on enough. Please, as always, we'll ask you to like this, whether you're watching it on YouTube or listening to it on Apple or Spotify or wherever. If you can get us a follow, give us a review, subscribe if that applies to where you're getting this. And one thing we'd really love to see too is if you could share this. If everybody who downloaded it shared it with one person, that would be huge for us.
Huge.
Because we don't have a budget for advertising right now, so you're it. But like on where we kind of go to do our thing in Buzzsprout, they kind of let us know where we are and what's happening. And we passed the 250 download mark several weeks ago, and that was exciting. And our subscriber base is still growing on YouTube, and that's awesome. But the shares are low, so let's get those shares up.
Yeah, it's not gonna hurt anything. Just share it.
I mean, you liked it, so why?
I say it all the time. Even if you don't like it, share it anyway. Maybe one of your friends will.
Yeah, you could say, "Hey, this sucks. Check it out."
Check it out. Listen to see how bad these guys are.
That works for us.
Yeah.
Any publicity is good publicity, right?
There you go.
All right. Well, it has been a pleasure. We are thrilled that you watched or that you listened, and we hope you'll come back next time.
Thank you.
And until then, please remember, no matter the genre, no matter the decade, music is the glue that keeps us all together.
Music is the glue.
All right, so stay tuned, stay connected, and we will see you soon.
Peace.
I've got chains upon my whole